Volume 2, Manipulating Leaves. This is a continuation of Volume 1 where I started with much simpler, easier things, basically for a beginner, but also if you haven't had much time to play with foliage. So if you haven't got Volume 1, Manipulating Leaves, do go back to floradesign-dvds.com and order it, because it's going to make it a little bit easier for you with Volume 2, because you'll have had a chance to play with all of the different techniques. So in Volume 2 we're going to focus on New Zealand flax, as well as the beautiful big palms, aspidistra, and also going to take you just for a brief look at some of the beautiful tropical foliage that you can get from your plant nursery, and do what the Russians do. You buy the plant, chop it up, and then put it in a warm place over the winter, for example your basement, so it will shoot again ready for the summer again. So that is a big source of inspiration. For this one, where you're folding it into a circle, you are not going to use the tips of the flax, so we chop those off, and you're not going to use this hard woody piece here, so we're going to cut that off as well. And divide the flax into strips, taking out that tiny middle piece. You're also going to need a bead, and one of those waste bits of flax that I just used, I've just threaded the bead onto a tiny piece of flax. Any bead will do. I've picked one that's very natural brown, because when this dries it will dry to a beautiful golden colour, and that will blend beautifully. So take your piece of flax and bend an angle into it. The longer the angle, the bigger the circle. So if you're doing an angle like that, you're going to end up with a very big circle. If you do an angle like this, you're going to end up with a much smaller circle. So bend an angle in it, and then bend another angle, and another, another. See, the smaller the angle, the smaller it's going to be. And now we've come back to where we started, and bend, bend. You know, I'm putting my finger on the point, the tip of where I want it to bend, and that's going to give me a nice sharp bend on there. Try this with any of your plant material that you have that you know will dry and as bendy as New Zealand flax is. Getting smaller and smaller and smaller. As this dries, it will also get much, much finer and won't seem so out of scale. The more times you go around, the more complex your little rosette will seem. And when you've decided you've gone round enough, you just put a little, cut that piece off, and take your bead, fold it in half. Now each piece of this is going to go through that centre, and this will just hold it all beautifully in place. So I'm now pulling that bead through, and the bead is going to hold it all through there. I turn it over the back, and you tie each one of these around each side of that stem. You can also obviously use cold glue. Neaten up this side. There you have it, a lovely little, very little rosette. Now you can leave those on, or you just cut them off at the back here, so that as it dries they become far more integrated into the design. With this one that I've made with the variegated flax, you can finish them off a little bit differently if they are bigger, and that is to take a bead and thread it on to the piece of the flax that you have been creating the angle on. Push it right down through and then split the bit of flax. So now when you push that through the hole that is created there, it is also threading the finished piece of flax down inside. A little bit of cold glue if you want to finish it that way, or once again around this and finish it off with a notch. These techniques were invented by the Maori people before cold glue was invented, 600 or 800 years ago. And it is lovely to know their finishing techniques, because you can then say, oh, I can do it whether I've got all these flash new ways of doing things or not. And as with using the variegated, you get a really nice finish onto that there. I've got one here that I did 4 years ago, so you can see that they do last, even though this one is looking very worn now. And I did that one with a piece of earring, and it had a metal clip on it, so that was just pushed through to the back as well. So you can be quite creative of how you use them. Of course, do expect them to last. They're going to last a long, long time. This one is also a circle, but it's done using 2 strips of flax, which is going to give you more depth to your finished rosette. So you split a piece of flax into 2, going down to the woody part, and then split out that very, very tough middle and cut it out completely. Flax. Okay, so you bend the first one over the second, then you take the top strip and you bend that one over the first one. Now you take this one and bend it over that one, and that immediately, of course, is giving you the angle, and bend it over. Keep these as nice and tidy as you can, and just keep going around, bending as you go. Once you've gone round the complete circle, you're now creating your second layer. Not hard, this one, I gave you the hard ones first. Just keep going until you've run out of flax, and if you see that the angle's not quite right, just change the angle. If they're going too up and down and you're not getting a nice enough looking rosette, just change the angle. So when you've run out of flax, this is when you decide that you're ready to finish it now, or you could keep going till it's much, much smaller. Get a skewer and just bore a hole right through it all. It goes right down to the back. I've threaded onto some heavy gauge florist wire a little bead, and pop it through the little hole that the skewer has made for you, right down, and that's going to hold it all in lovely and tight. And this is what's wonderful about this, because you can make that as blingy as you want if it's for some sort of a special wedding to match the bride, or you can make it as party as you like. It could be a little button that's an elephant or an angel for a child's party, and then you just twist this through there and cut it off. You can thread these back in with a little bit of cold glue. You could make a lovely little twist with a wee bit of cold glue, or you could just tuck them underneath and hide them completely. It's all about the feature that you want to make with these lovely little pieces that are left over there. So I'm going to just tuck that one in. Do the same with this one, just to make a nice little roll. Pull it right through and cut it off here. You've got your lovely little double flaxed rosette. This will dry much narrower. These will dry, but all the time this is in water, it will last several weeks. And here's the variegated example, so you can just see how the stripes become quite stunning when you use double colours, and a bead, of course, that is complete complementary colour contrast to it. The depth of it is quite different to the first one I showed you. You have far more volume in it. This one is much quicker and of course takes up less flax. Another nice easy one is how to bend flax creatively. This technique can be used for any blade that can give you a nice sharp bend. You're going to score the flax in two places, a ruler, the back of the flax and the back of a pair of scissors, and just a lovely sharp score. That is going to give you a lovely sharp bend. Very smart. And do it in a couple of paces. There's the first one. Now you can fold it on the dull side, or you can fold it on the shiny side. It's obviously completely up to you. There's the shiny side. Both of them are giving you beautiful folds, so that when you come down to here, we'll put another fold in there. One, two, three, and down. Any angle you feel like here. A quick staple right in that fold, and there you have another really cool idea for an extraordinary arrangement. These staples, what you can do to disguise them is, before you put them into the staple gun, just put a little bit of green paint, the same colour green as your flax, onto the top of them. When they dry, put them back in the staple gun, and of course then as you use the stapler, they will come out green. You can always paint them afterwards if you've got time, if you're not an extremely busy person. So that will give you a wonderful shape that you'll be able to use in myriad ways. An extension of that is to adding two more score lines, one here and one here. That is for the top fold, that is for the bottom fold, and now you can have a double decker. Staple there of course first. This is a woven roll in flax, and a small strip of weaving becomes an interesting roll which can dry, can be spray painted and used fresh or grouped. So split the flax into 4 strips. And weave the left hand strip over, under, over. Take the next left hand one and do the same thing again. And take the next left hand one and take it over. You can see I have left that middle in. If that middle, when you're doing it, is too hard, just take it out. Now take the bottom right hand strip and weave that. So to do that, just turn it all the way around. That's still the bottom right hand strip, and weave that one under and over, under and over. And this last one just gets bent over. So we're back to the 4 again as we turn it round. Starting on this side again, under, over, under. You see what's happening is that you are creating a strip, a woven strip, because we're always starting from the same side. You're not going back and forth. In volume 1 of manipulating the leaves, you'd have gone back and forth and that would have created your flax flower. But this one is all going the same way. The last one gets over and then we turn it round again. So we're getting this long strip. Nice sharp angle. Over, under, over. Taking it always from that right hand side. Doesn't fit nicely. And roll it over. And then turn it round again. And I'm going to do this until I have run out of flax and get right to the top there. Left hand side, right hand side, left hand side, right hand side, all the way up. When you get to the top, make sure you have got 2 strips coming out from either side. Flatten it all down. Then take the stalk end, which is here, and you're going to roll up the weaving. Now as you roll it, you can either be pulling it out so you're making a long thin piece, or you can have it all tightly together. You're rolling it in. So when you rolled it to the top, take 2 of the little blades that are left and bring them down inside, and take these 2 here. Now at this point you can decide that you want to have that much higher up like that, but either way you've still got to allow room to tie this knot here to finish it off. So once you've tied the knot, you can trim it off neatly. Of course, if you don't want to use a technique of 800 years ago, 600 years ago, you can use cold glue. You can even pull these gently up so they're more. Now imagine that with this dried, of course, a little bit, nesting a rose coming up through here and sitting on the top over there is a wonderful way to add value for a single rose or a single gerbera, or have a lot of them all in a line, all vertically up this way into floral foam, so they become your lovely centerpiece for something else that's going to go on up through it. It's going to look absolutely wonderful. So there it is, one idea of using that braid. I'm going to show you another one though. I've unpicked it so I can show you another way of assembling exactly the same piece of braid. This time you're going to curl it under this way. And when you get down to the end now, you've got these 2 pieces this way to tie it onto the back here, or use your cold glue. Now this will dry in a completely different way to the other way I showed you, and it will bewilder people. I think that's what's so wonderful about these ancient techniques from the Maori people, is they're just not seen, and they bewilder people, and they say, how did you make that? They don't know how you transformed a little piece of flax, even if they know it's flax or what you have, into this really, really interesting tiny little sculpture. One of those in a fairly ordinary bouquet or gift arrangement in a floral foam will have people being very pleased with you. I've done it again with much, much softer corners, and I've tied it this time at the very, very top. The reason I've done this is it's going to give you a completely different look again as you roll it this time, going down on the inside. The knot stays on the outside there. Roll it right to the bottom there. Use some pearl-headed pins to hold this all in place. Now, you can also, then you'll have to get your wire cutters to cut the tops of those pins off there. And it gives you a completely different look from this one here that's all tightly enclosed. But even more so than that, when this has been drying, in this case for 4 years, you can take the pins out. This has stayed quite rather lovely piece of rhythm. Beautiful light spray of gold on it or silver on it, and that becomes a beautiful form in its own right. And that is simply by tying that at the top and waiting for it to dry. It looks a bit gawky at this stage, but when it's all tidied up and dried, the transformation takes place. Experiment with the plant material that you've got just to see how this one technique can be changed by how you braid it, how you roll it, and what sort of plant material you use. For the wasp's nest, which is named because it looks like a wasp's nest, you need to divide the flax up into 1 or 2 centimetre strips. And the easiest way to do that is to follow the line of the flax and split it all the way up until you've got 4 strips. Cut the bottom hard part off because it won't bend nicely, and also cut the tip off because you're wanting these to be fairly uniform in size, and you do that 4 times. If you're planning to build a particularly large nest, have some spare ones that you can use to join on later. This is a wonderful little quirky thing that you can put into an arrangement. As you can see, I have done here. Gave this to a lady who just had her 90th birthday, and immediately she said, wow, what a cool thing, look, how did you weave that? So it just gives a little bit of interest, even though looking at it you'd wonder why. Find your longest piece, and you're going to have 2 fingers and wrap it around your fingers in the middle of the flax. The second piece, you slide it under here. Just loosen your fingers a wee bit now. I'm sliding it under here, also going to the halfway mark of the flax, around and back down and through that loop. Now when you pull this all together, you end up locking it in. Pull them all so they become tighter and tighter and tighter, and you have locked it in. Now that in itself is a wonderful little piece of leaf manipulation. Keep it neat by having these bends as tight as you can make them. But that, sitting in a design, windmill, the beginning of a bouquet, building up the beginning of a cage, going up like this. It's a lovely, neat way to start something off that requires having 4 points. And if I turn over the back of it, it's a lovely cross there. So both sides are as neat as the other side. Now I took a little bit of time just to get these all lovely and straight and neat, because that is the very foundation of your wasp's nest, and from this point you are just going to build. But it's exactly the same thing. You are going to go over one with lovely bend there, over one, and then this one here slides down and goes through there. And when you pull it through, it locks everything beautifully in position. So you can start again. And you're going to do this. You can build a wasp's nest as high as you possibly want it to go. I normally like it to go about to here, so it makes a difference. So this time I'm starting this way. So I'm just going backwards on it. The next one across. The next one across. And the last one tucked under there. And I just loosen that a wee bit to get that in there. Now, doing this with variegated flax, yellow and green, you'll get all the most beautiful colours coming through, but you can also try it with other plant material that might be less expensive where you live. I'm going to do this again. Over, 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 and through the gap, loosen that a little bit, and lock it in. Try it with typha, cordyline, reeds, flat reeds, anything that you've got lots available that's a long thin blade. There's the shiny side of the flax crawling up here and the dull side of the flax climbing up there. So it does give a lovely variegation if you can do it two sides. Of course, you don't have to do it with the plant material at all. You could do this with cardboard and it would give you quite another decoration. So we've got to this point. I carried on so you could see that point we need to join, hence having some spears. And to join, putting it so it's the same side, simply lay it on top. So when you bring this one down to lock it in, it also locks in your new piece of plant material. There's the locked in one there, so you can either cut it off or just slide it back. And it's there. So that is a wasp nest. I'm going to keep going so you can see it a little bit higher now you've got the routine, and then I'll show you something magic you can do with it. So you can see I just kept on going round and round and doing some joins, and there's the wasp's nest complete with the beginning cross there. You can, as this dries, pull it out and insert plant material into these holes that you can see there. You can see in this picture I did that for this design featuring beautiful spring narcissus. Another idea for you is not to finish when you get to the end of the blade, but actually leave the blade long, because then you can bend it over and slip it back underneath, and you end up with these lovely loops. You can make one loop, or you can pull it through and slip it underneath and make a second loop. And because these are so tight, you don't need glue. They actually will all hold in place just like that. So it gives you all sorts of wonderful possibilities for creating magic with your own imagination and ideas for what you're going to do with this wasp's nest. And that's what I did in this design I showed you at the beginning. I actually curled them all over and then stood them up on the ends with a piece of flax so they came out this way, and that's where all the dahlias were. Now this variation on the wasp's nest has got the stalk still attached, which makes it really fast if you're wanting to put it into floral foam. Split into 4. You see that one's run away, so I'm not going to use that one. See how they've run away at the top there? By run away I mean to say it's gone right off and became quite small. You don't want that. I've ended up with this hard core, which is very hard to weave, and I want 4 pieces, so I'm also going to take that outside piece off and cut this right back to there. It's left me with 4 pieces and the stalk. Okay, I'm going to do this fairly slowly for you so you can see how it all works, because this way you're going to get that wasp's nest base on that stalk there. So first thing you're going to do is fold over, under and over neatly to there. Then you're going to take this one here and go back the other way. This is just forming that base. If you start too far down the stalk of flax, it will be very hard and woody. That's why I cut a lot of it off. Bend down the right hand top strip, bend over the right hand strip, bend down the left hand strip, bend that one over, and then to lock it all in place, take this one, cut off the tip. It will make it a lot easier. And just like you did when you were making the wasp's nest without a handle, slide it in underneath, and that will lock it all in place. And that will look familiar now, because that is the beginning of your wasp's nest. Now the last one that you locked in is the first one that you use to build the nest. So you locked it in just then. So now this one gets bent over and back you go the other way. Bending, 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 and then with the 4th one, lock it into place. Cut off the tip. Now if you find it hard to get your plant material underneath there, remember when you do your first lock, don't make it too tight. You can see that that's just totally locked into place there. That's not moving. So that was the last piece. So over we go again, back the other way. And now of course it will be a familiar rhythm to you. You take the piece, put it underneath. It's alive. And lock. So you've got it now, you've got the rhythm. Last piece, so bring it back the other way. Now as you keep building, this one will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you'll end up with a little pyramid. There's one I did earlier that I have just finished, and just to show you how I have locked in those pieces. This was the last row, that was locked underneath there, so I've simply cut it and cut it off there, and it's firmly in place. And you can see that pyramid shape. You can also pull this out if you're going to use it for something more interesting than just that. You can pull it out so you can get plant material through there just like you could with the wasp's nest. You can decorate it. You could add extra pieces. Of course, just like with the wasp's nest, it makes the most extraordinary base for adding all of the loops that you want in the world, all of the twists that you want in the world, because anything can now slip underneath these things to make these wonderful, beautiful enclosed space type freeform arrangements. This is how you can loop flax creatively. I've taken one strip of flax from off a main blade, and you need to cut this hard piece here off. Once you've done that, it's very simple. You grab the tip and the base. As it goes around here, put your hand through the loop, grab the tip out and bend it all down so it comes back to the main stem. When you get it to the main stem, you create a little staple in it to hold it all together. And you have this lovely creative loop. Now you put lots and lots of these together into a design, and you have this wonderful mishmash of flax. The way it's going to create holes for you to put all sorts of flowers in between and around them, and it's a very creative way of using a piece of flax. If you have a look at how the dimensions of it and the depths of it change, it can be put up this way. So as it changes, the viewer will see a different dimension. Palms come in lots of varieties under the genus Aracaceae. Now I'm not sure if I've said that right, so I've just put it at the bottom there for you so you can do your own best bit of Latin. The two widely recognised shapes that are used in floral design are the feather shape, such as this one. This is a yellow palm. But there is also the fan-shaped ones, and these, such as the Washingtonia and things like that. Now they're both very versatile. They last well in water and they can be dried for later use. In this form they're beautiful and tropical, but if you've manipulated them and it's taken the time to do it, don't throw them out at the end of the event, because they are going to be wonderful once they've dried. All you need for this technique is some feather palm fronds and some cable ties. These are used by electricians to secure wiring around a house. They come in lots of different colours, and you're just wanting the short ones. And we're just going to curl it up. So you take the first three fronds on one side and bring them all over together and cable tie them around the stem. Pick the colour of the cable tie that is going to go with the flowers in your design. In this case I would be using yellow flowers. Squish the cable tie right to the end, quite tightly, and then cut off the tag. It's quite fashionable at the moment to leave the tags on, so that is obviously your call. Now you can either then do the same thing with the other three so you get a symmetrical design going up, or you can do it so it is asymmetrical. I'm going to cut off these first two fronds and make it asymmetrical, so even here you've got variations. Take the next three on the other side, bring them down. This time, did you notice I took them to the back? Cable tie them in place. You don't have to use cable ties, you can use cold glue, decorative wire, do the same job. And now we can take these three, bend them down. Frontwards will make a different look to backwards. It will be driving you crazy if you're a symmetrical person, in which case do them opposite each other. Do this all the way up. It might take you a minute, 2 minutes to do it, and yet you've got yourself a really cool different look. These little pieces of yellow in design theory are called accents, which means you don't look at them first, you notice them after you've seen the main part of the design, which would be your flowers. They just add a little spot and it gives you interest, depth. So people don't just walk past it and they've seen everything at once. This is the simplest version of it, and leaving the top on. You can choose to cut off all these little fronds all the way down like that. You could choose to bind the fronds. You could choose to plait parts of the fronds. You could choose to have this top bit all cable tied up together, so it has that lovely finish on it like that. There are lots of ways to do it, and you only need one of these in a design and you've got yourself a lovely piece of interest that has made more value, more interest, more interesting to a single frond. Looping a feather shaped palm is also an interesting idea if you want to just give it a little bit more pizzazz. You're going to need some pins or some floral adhesive. If you're going to have the pins, you're going to need tin snips because you're going to be cutting pieces off those pins. And it's pretty simple. You just take the frond and you roll it. And as you roll it down, you're bringing it down to the stem. These are dressmaking pins. Pop the pin through so it's going through the stem. Bring it out the other side, and then take the tin snips, and these have to go right up to the top there and cut it off. Added security, if you wish, is to add the floral adhesive. The red pins obviously mean that I'm going to be using red for the main part of my design. So as well as being a mechanic, these little pins, heads, become an interesting, integral part. If you find a yellow palm or a palm that isn't as soft and small as this one, which I got from a flower market, you're going to find this job a lot easier, and of course the results are going to also be more spectacular. When you get to the top, you might find that your frond is too small for a pin to go into it, so I'll just show you how you can use cold glue as an alternative. I've put a wee bit of cold glue there and pop it on and hold your finger down and it will hold there. Now as a variation of this, you don't have to loop it right back to the stem. You could just have loops on the top of it. You could have it looped all the way up and none of the fronds showing. Now that could be another variation you've got there. Another one, of course, is you can start here, and now you can take these off so it's leading all the eyes to the top. And that gives you a very smart frond for a modern design. It doesn't have to be tropical, but it doesn't have to have a lot in it, because you've got that lovely sharp contrast to the curls on this side. Now you've seen the wasp's nest already done with the flax, so I've just done it here for you on the feather palm. It's exactly the same. I've taken the 4 fronds, used exactly the same starting point and done them on that side, and then matched it on that side, so you have this beautiful little interesting diamond shape. What's wonderful about that is it makes it so geometric looking, and of course, just like the others, you can curl it in like this, or you can cut them off as you want it to be. The yellow palm is much softer, so I have put little bits of cold glue underneath there to hold it in place. But another technique, that wasp nest, I tell you can use it on all sorts of wonderful leaves. So that is some ideas of how to use a feather palm. As it is absolutely beautiful. A little bit fussier by having the curls. Very geometrical, fabulous for an Eastern style design, and extremely smart and chic if you just wanted a single big flower at the bottom of your design. But of course, remember, the fern can simply be twisted in ways that will make it work. If you can hold that twist at the top, or have it coming back down through here, there are all sorts of wonderful things you can do by just playing with it. Think what the plant material wants to do, and you can still end up with some lovely shapes by experimenting. In this section we're going to do some fun things with the fan shaped palms. Washingtonia, Sorpimento, footstool palm, fan palm. All versatile, all last well in water, can be dried for later use, and they all have slightly different shapes, but once again, adapt them for the ones that you're able to get from your public reserves with permission, or from your wholesaler. A simple technique, which is a very good one, is to cut a fan palm such as this one out of my garden in a way that makes it quite stylish. Now, it's probably the hardest thing ever to cut a circle, so as soon as I do it, you'll say, well, that's obvious. You go, yep, it is now. Use a plate, an old big dinner plate, to get the shape that you want on your palm, particularly if you're going to do it on one side, and then cut around the plate, and you'll have that lovely, beautiful curl that you want on it. Just deviating out a little bit, but it's just started you off, so you've got something to work on when you're making that first cut. And just like that, you end up with a lovely curl. All of these brown tips have come off, and you're ready to start your design. You can do the same type of rolling as we did with the feather palm. Here you'll see when you look at a fan palm, it's often joined halfway down. So you're going to start by making a decision. Are you going to curl them so that they just come to here, or are you going to curl them so they go right down to the base? There we go. As far as you want to go with it. Cut off the tip. Curl. Quickest way is to staple. You can cold glue, staple's the best way, quickest way. Don't have them all in the same place, you want a bit of interest and variety, so you might staple the second one a wee bit higher up. So it's a wonderful grouping technique. And try and hide the staple, so you're actually not seeing very much of them at all. Right, so you can imagine I've done all the way around there with that sort of a style, but I'm going to show you a different technique on the same one that you can also use. I wouldn't recommend having 3 techniques on the same. So it's a case of do as I say, not do as I do, because really you don't want to get so many techniques on one piece of material, it gets a bit fussy. So I'm saying, if you're going to do this on the other side, do it right the way around. You can do a very quick little plait. So we're starting with 3, we're going into the middle with that one, into the middle, flatten it down, into the middle. If you've ever had long hair, you'll know how to do this. It's much easier to do it on a flat surface. If you try to do this not on a flat surface, you'll end up with quite a messy looking plait. And I'm turning it in each time as I go. Now you could finish with a staple, you could finish it with a spot of cold glue. If it's in water, this fan palm will last for a long time, so this can be done in advance, and it's just depending where you want to finish it off to get that really cool effect. I'm going to use cold glue, put a little bit under there, a little bit under there. So if you like that effect, do it for the rest of these fronds around here. So one side will be cut, one side will have these interesting plaits on them. Because I've got a little bit of palm left here, I'm going to show you that you can also do the wasp's nest that I've already shown you to do with flax on a palm. Because it's exactly the same technique. All you need is these 4 strips. So I have stripped it right down, so now it's gone right to the base there. We have our 4 pieces. Over we go with the first piece there. And then this middle piece goes underneath there and across to there. So that is your first action. Your second action is to bring this one across to there. And then this one comes down and you click it in underneath that first one. And that gives you that familiar piece that you've already seen in the DVD when I did it with the New Zealand flax, and that is the beginning of your wasp's nest. Now just like that, it looks pretty amazing, doesn't it? But I will complete the wasp's nest so that you can see how it looks. So this is the piece we finished with, so we go back the other way. Up to there, along to there, down to here, and then this one tucks in. If you're using particularly soft palm, you may have to put a little bit of cold glue underneath on this locking join, because it may just slip out. This is much softer material than New Zealand flax, but there it is, sitting there like that. And you could have these on each one of your palm as you're going around, and of course you can make them as large as you want to have. If you can see in this photo here, they're fairly dripping off the palm and they just look so interesting. When I do this, people say to me, "How did you do that, Trish? It looks so complicated." And when you know you're just doing that little 4 repeat each way round, there it is. Go to the ends of the fronds if you want to, leave them like that. You could cut the fronds like little windmills, all on those lovely angles like that, and it's just giving you that extra little interesting piece. If you don't live in a tropical climate and you cannot get hold of these beautiful plants like this calathea or bird's nest fern, this is when you haunt the tropical parts of your garden centre and keep them inside as indoor plants. In this section, just going to show you how to manipulate one of these beauties into a shape that's going to show the amazing back of it as well as the front, and some ideas from the slideshow. Now I'm going to select leaves that are of a similar size. Some of them here are not in good condition, but it actually doesn't matter because you're only going to see the outside edge of them. So we'll build a layer of 5. That will now go back in a warm part of the house, and it will continue to grow more leaves for me. This one is the biggest one, so that'll go on the bottom. That is the nicest one, so that will go on the top. We're going to build up the layers. You can see it done here in this design with a beautiful bird's nest fern. All sorts of wonderful tropicals lend themselves to that. Now, if you want to shape it, this is when you bring in the wire, run it down the seam. If it's not, run it down the seam. It's not thick enough, do it twice, then put the next one on top, matching the veins for the veins. And of course this one's the one that's not in good condition, so that's why I've put it there. Already starting to get that lovely curl. I'm going to do this 3 more times. Right, so there's 5 layers of them, and just look how sensational that looks. You can pull these so that they're actually even further apart this way, so you're getting this beautiful ripple effect. If the leaves you're using are bendier, they could bend across as they go. But you can also now, because that's fully wired, take these stems so they're all nice and tidy, but now with that we can start to do some lovely bending things. You can hear it creaking inside there, that sellotape and that wire. Now, if your imagination is like my imagination, you're already thinking of wonderful ways you can show off that purple at the same time as you're showing off those top smudges. Aspidistra elatior you have already met in volume 1. It is one of the mainstays of floral design worldwide. You can get it standard, which is plain, or of course you can get it in beautiful variegations. If you buy this from a wholesaler, they will be all exactly the same size. If you're lucky enough to get them from a garden, they're going to be bigger, smaller and more interesting in their shapes. They are even more versatile when they're rolled, bent, layered and stapled, and so these new manipulating ideas are adding to your repertoire from what you've already learned in volume 1. There are quite a few different ways you can shine Aspidistra. These are as they've been picked out of the garden. Ladies from South Africa have told me they use wooden furniture polish. In New Zealand, milk is something that's used, and I know in other parts of the world they use vegetable oil just brushed over it to keep it nice and shiny. Variegated or plain, you can see Aspidistra's got a fat side and a skinny side, and so these in effect are left and right of each other. Can you see that? They are mirror imaging each other with the short piece and then the long piece. I'm going to pop them end on end like this. Put a staple through here, paint it green if you don't want it to be seen. Now, with one hand, start twisting the leaf. And as you twist the leaf, it's going to dance with the variegated one. Then when you put them together into the foam, you end up with this beautiful, beautiful shape, all waiting for the rest of your design to go in. What's amazing about it is that you can have them in the floral foam apart, you'll get a different look. Further apart, you'll get a different look. Very different if you attach them one above the other, putting this one onto a stick with green tape and making it taller. You can add to the height of it. See how it's changing? But it's a very beautiful way to add rhythm and it's only 2 aspidistra leaves. For this design, for pinning an aspidistra, all you need is the aspidistra leaves and some decorative pins. Put a small slit into the aspidistra leaf with your thumbnail through there. Then bend this under and put it through the slit. So depending on where you put the slit is depending on just how good it's going to look. And over it comes to this side. Works really well with variegated as well on this one. Then you put your decorative pin into here and through the other side where you can't see it. It doesn't have to be this long obviously, it just depends on the colour that you need for the rest of your design. And put it in, and there you have a really cool little effect that looks very, very good, just quietly sitting there